We had another MetaZoo Hour on August 16th, and... oh crap. Not again. Alright, now that we got that straightened out, our first question this week is from Dark Cavalier asking if MetaZoo's going to be working with Bear Bricks, and Mike says yes they are. And this likely has something to do with Craig Takaguchi being appointed to board of directors back in February, as this is a Japanese-based company. I had not heard of Bear Bricks before this question, but essentially what they are is they have bear figures that they take popular IPs, put those on the bear figures, and people collect them. Now, every MetaZoo Hour, it is asked whether or not the code cards are going to be in the next set, and Mike did answer that they're thinking native at this point. This is important because it does also confirm that the online game, the online version of MetaZoo, is then expected to be out around the time or a little bit before native. So this is the first time since finding out that code cards would not be in UFO that we're getting a rough timeline of when we can expect it in the future. Zeke1993 asks when the Frogman Festival is going to be. This was recently announced that they're going to be at the Frogman Festival in Ohio, and this is going to take place in March of 2023. And D, the storyteller, did add on to that, saying it's a cryptozoology-based festival that celebrates the legend of Loveland Frogman and other cryptids from Ohio. I had one of my questions answered. I had asked how will the one-of-one hand-painted comics be available? And Andy actually answered this question. He said they're actually working on that right now, and they're being printed at the moment. And there was a question later in the MetaZoo Hour that I found very interesting and I think might be related. Zaki Carp asked, any plans for Golden to start selling MetaZoo original artworks? Will that be con exclusive? And to answer that, we got the smile emoji, which means that something's in the works, but they don't really want to talk about it at the moment. And I'm curious if the one-of-one hand-painted comics are going to be part of the Golden auctions. Our next question is from Kemoon Brown 3 asking, any advice for somebody just getting into MetaZoo? Where should I start for collecting and playing? And Mike said, ask here, start talking to people, and get excited because the community is amazing, and I don't disagree. I recently did an episode of Cryptid Conversations, which is the podcast that I do with Caster's Corner, and we covered this topic, where to get started with MetaZoo. And the first thing that I had said was join the Discords. Start talking to people, get into the community. We also talked about what sets are best for collecting and starting to play, so if you want to check out that podcast, it's in that link there. We had Infinite Mana ask, still working on the IPO, and Mike's answer to this really surprised me. He said, I put it on hold as well as taking outside investment despite all the offers coming in more and more. I need to focus on MetaZoo. I won't be selling it off to anyone, and I think that's an important message to send to the community. And I think that's an amazing answer and something that we should all be really excited for, because that means that MetaZoo's focus is not selling. If their decision making isn't focused on the IPO, that means that the decisions that they make are not focused on how do we position ourselves to be a company that people want to buy. It's focused on other things. And this goes in line with what MetaZoo has been saying over the past couple months. Their shift to LGSs that support the game by holding events. Their shift to making the core products much more player-base friendly than collector-base friendly. While Mike's answer was surprising, I can't say it wasn't unexpected from how the company has been holding themselves over the last couple months. We have Rickle MetaZoo Maniac asking, when do you expect Kickstarter poker card stuff to be shipping out for Rainbow Gilding? And Mike said next week, hopefully. And people are already getting their Kickstarter stuff in hand. They are starting with the smaller orders first and working up to the more complicated ones. The gilding was already expected to take longer anyway, so I expect the gilding is still going to be towards the end of the shipments. Liftaw asks, what are you most excited for Long Beach? And Chaos Crystal Enthusiast, or Andy, replied with a picture of the tent that is going to be set up at Long Beach. And this is the tent where they're going to be doing, I assume, the tarot card readings. By the time you're watching this video, Long Beach is probably started. I'm hoping to get this out Friday night. Darling Dashwood asks, will there be more LGS kits, and will Game Castle carry MetaZoo again? And Mike replied with, again? I've seen the order forms, and every Game Castle has ordered the most recent set, despite what some YouTube videos might say. And I think it's really important. I don't know if everybody knows that Shaw Mead, the owner of Game Castle, works with MetaZoo. So the relationship there is still pretty tight. I'm not quite sure how those rumors got started. Senpai Roshi asks, any tease on what the first set of 2023 is? And if you've been watching this channel, you know the answer to that is native. There was a question from Monster later in the MetaZoo Hour asking, will native be Earth-based? Please say yes. And Mike said, yep. So we're expecting an Earth-based set. Probably going to have some browns in there for the core set colors. Mildly Caucasian asked if there's any thoughts of the Nightfall binder coming back with 2nd edition Nightfall. And Mike said no. Andy said that our main set binders are a one and done. And Mike then followed up with no 2nd edition Nightfall. I'm not sure how this rumor got started. And this rumor actually got started from an Argos video. So Argos, after UFO, did a walkthrough of his house in his Get It Done video. And some eagle-eyed fans saw this box here that's on the screen that said Nightfall 2nd Edition. And what this is actually referencing isn't a 2nd edition of the Nightfall core set. It's actually the Pin Club 2nd Wave. The boxes on that said Nightfall 2nd Edition. Vader DSP asked, is there any information about the Pin Club UFO NFT boxes, maybe pictures? Mike said check the announcements, so if you missed that, those boxes are in the announcements. You can see the NFT sticker on the box there. And I did cover this in last week's weekly update. If you want to check that out, you can go to the link above. And Bronson asks, MetaZoo, it looks like the print quality has increased drastically with UFO from previous sets. Has the printing company changed with UFO, or has the company stayed the same but increased the quality of materials used? Any reason for the update in cardstock or print quality? Mike had said, our love for the community and constantly wanting to improve. We put our money where our mouths are. And Mike, we've talked about this. Please don't eat the money. If you're going to eat anything, eat the samples. Currently Gassing Mattoon asks, Mike, I'm dying to know when I'll be getting my Wilderness Revive and rug. Do you have an ETA on the shipping dates? And Mike said end of August, early September. So we should be expecting Revive, Wilderness, and the rugs that were released with Dim Mak anytime now. We're at the end of August as it is already. Shadow LG asks, when can we expect our 2nd anniversary celebrations cards? And I'm really excited for this because I can't wait to put the 2nd anniversary card in my spellbook. It has so many uses, it's insane. And if you don't remember that card, it allows you to, when an opposing caster plays a neutral spell, change the text on the card to each caster bookmark 1. So this could be played against 1st Anniversary Celebration, it could be played against New Year's New Beginnings, Power Up Red. So I expect this to actually be one of the strongest counters in the game. Acerbic Arbalist asks, y'all gonna be in Salem for Halloween or something? And Mike replied with the smiley emoji, and that was announced in the announcements right after Roswell that they're looking to do the Seance release event in Salem. Now, the state wasn't exactly mentioned which Salem it's going to be. It can be assumed that it will be Salem, Massachusetts, since that's where the Salem witch trials took place. And during the MetaZoo Hour, it was actually the first question of the MetaZoo Hour. Argos asked, Salem Seance release event party when? And Mike had said October. We're expecting this to be October 20th or later, so either the weekend of the 20th or the weekend of Halloween. Ben M asks, sample card black tie event when? And Mike says that he likes the idea, but they need to be very selective about who they allow in. And if you don't know why, there's this group called Black Border Society, and they do not get along with MetaZoo very well. There's a whole history there that I'm not going to get into right now, but the premise of that is to join the Black Border Society, you need to own a sample card. We have Arkham Scarrow asking, will there be any Seance packs at Collecticon? And Mike says yes. Now, the question wasn't super specific. Will there be any Seance packs at Collecticon? I could assume that Arkham Scarrow actually meant Collecticon Long Beach, but did not specify. Mike could have taken that and ran with it to say yes when he actually means Denver and not, say, Long Beach. Long Beach is this weekend, so we'll see what happens. Our next question is from the sponsor of this channel, Immortal Workshop. If you haven't checked out immortalworkshop.com, please go do so. There's an affiliate link in the description below. If you buy anything from immortalworkshop.com using that link, I will get a kickback for this channel, and I thank you for that. So Immortal asks, hey Mike, when will the Seance partnerships open back up? And Mike says at the end of August. So if you're an LGS like Immortal Workshop that's looking to become a partner, expect those forms to be up in the next week or so. Cheto TCG asks, is the booster box for Seance going to be $140 MSRP or lower? And Mike replied with, despite our paper prices increasing and 10% inflation, we won't be increasing MSRP on our products like other TCGs. and keeping it at $140, which is still below Pokemon's MSRP, for instance. So this is a good confirmation of the price of Seance is not going to change over what we're used to for UFO, and I assume MetaZoo is going to keep the same MSRP and map rules for Seance as UFO, so you'll see it for $140 for the first 2 weeks, and then after 2 weeks, LGSs and partners will be allowed to reduce it down to 80% of MSRP, or around $112. Probably the most exciting question of the entire MetaZoo Hour was from Outlaw4188, who asked, is the print run for Seance going to be lower than Wilderness UFO, and if so, what are the print numbers for the Seance products? And Mike had said Seance is going to have the same print run as Nightfall, since we'll have so many other products coming out around the same time, and it's a fine balance. Nightfall had a print run of 50,000 boxes. That's half of what UFO had. UFO had 100,000 of each SKU. Now, I would expect and I hope that the blister packs stay at 100,000 or at least 50,000 of each art type, because even at 100,000 for UFO and for Wilderness, those are the fastest products to fly off the shelves. Now, I have mixed feelings on this. I'll save that for the weekly update. NDS asks, signed copies of the book, and Mike says, I'm thinking we do 1,000 signed hard books. And it had already been announced at a previous MetaZoo Hour that he wants to do leather-bound signed copies of MetaZoo Cryptid Nation. We now know that he's looking to do about 1,000 of those, and I'm really excited for that because that means there's a much better chance that I can get one. So I see 69 asks, streamer kits when and how, we're thirsting out here. And Mike says, we were going to do them with Whatnot, now we're looking at doing them with eBay or Twitch instead. And this is actually the first time that I realized that eBay has a live sale system now as well, that went live in July. So it would seem that even though MetaZoo has announced a partnership with Whatnot in the past, they're going to be moving more towards eBay and Twitch. Elijah Sparks asks, would MetaZoo be interested in a collaboration with Whatnot? Asking because I know that the community grows daily on there. And Mike says, I think we want to form a deeper relationship with eBay and Twitch in the streaming space, which furthers that thought. Rico, MetaZoo is Life, asks, will we ever see the standard products change with the new set? Now it's always been booster boxes, spell books, release event decks, theme decks, blister packs. Wondering if this is going to be kept this way and only the extra products like eBay, Walmart, etc. keep changing. Mike says we're looking at tins in the future. This is exciting news as well because this is usually a product that would be half of what a spell book is. You have your booster boxes at 36 packs, your spell books at 10, and tins usually contain about 5 packs. This would also provide a cheaper option for people to get multiple packs without needing to get a release event deck that they might not use or already have, and would be cheaper than buying multiple blister packs just to get a few packs if you need a few. And this is something that has been talked about in the past. There was actually an exchange that they're hoping to get Pin Club to do those badges. Strike11010 asks, sponsored competitive players when I need these flights and rooms paid for, Daddy MetaZoo. Mike says, let's get towers set up first, and this is actually alluding to something that Mike had said in the interview with Argos around competitive play. As we get into more and more years of the Casters Cup, the goal is to get the prize pool higher and higher. Mike had said in the interview that they want to get it up to $50 million like some of the esports competitive events. Now, as part of that interview, Mike had said that they are thinking about the idea of the top caster of that tower having sponsorship, having things paid for, and getting into the Casters Cup top 32 automatically. So when Mike says, let's get the tower set up first, I don't think he's saying, well, let's get this and then we'll talk about it later. I think they already have some ideas around sponsored competitive players. PNW Dude asks, would MetaZoo ever do an LGS tour where MetaZoo's tours and hold special events at local game stores? And Mike answered, thinking about an LGS tour this fall. And what else do we know is coming this fall? Towers. I think it would make a lot of sense that as Mike is going around and doing these towers events and getting the tower set up, that he's also visiting the local game stores around the tower. If you remember from what we've talked about with towers already, part of how you qualify for a tower is going to be participating in events at local LGSs around that tower. So it would only make sense that Mike would then visit those LGSs, tell them about the plans, and meet the competitive players in that area. People Are People asks, any cool exclusives in the UFO lunchboxes? Do Wilderness box toppers with fire Also, has the pricing been announced yet? And Matt Super Scrub asks, any chance themed dice for MetaZoo? And in response to those, Mike replied to our people with pencils, first big coin, cool counters, and dice, etc. So that confirms that there will be dice. I imagine they're going to be UFO themed. And Andy replied with, and a MetaZoo thermos. So we did get a look at the original tease that had a thermos. It was unclear at that time if it was just a marketing image, but now we do know that a thermos comes with the lunchbox, which is amazing. And I imagine that's going to have the same or similar branding of the lunchbox on that, with the Lechuza fighting the Sky Snake. I had another question answered. I asked, when you said that UFO was technically printed in 2 languages, were you referring to Wakinian or something else? Mike and Andy both replied with something else. So this likely means that my theory about the writing on the spellbook is true, and that there's a secret rare that we don't know about yet. Dead Hat asks, MetaZoo, will there be an open casting call for the show? Would be cool to get some fans in on it. And Mike had said that he loves the idea and has no plans to use celebrities for the show. Now, this is amazing news because there's a bunch of people in the community already that are really interested in trying out for the show. You have Termentic. I know Harley at EpicTube HD has said that he's interested. You have a bunch of other people that I don't remember the names of off the top of my head, say that they're also interested in trying out for the show. And honestly, if there was any type of newscaster or radiocaster in the show, I would probably throw my hat in the ring, because I think it would be really cool to have a Cryptid Nation news reference in the show. So I think that when this is officially announced and when this is open, they're going to be flooded with people from the community wanting to help with the show. Also, will work for MetaZoo cards. And lastly, what I wanted to cover is Dummy Thick Dom asking any future plans to do yokai, and judging from the icon here, you are new here, yokai will be released in 2024. So we're about 2 years away from that, but yes, it's planned for the future. Well, that's all I needed to cover for this week's MetaZoo Hour. I hope you enjoyed the content. I did not cover everything. I only covered the things that were interesting. There were a bunch of questions that came up that we've already covered in recent MetaZoo Hours. And I would like to congratulate Chanimal for winning the 750 subscriber giveaway of the Wilderness Spellbook and the UFO Booster Box that has been shipped out already. Thank you for watching, and if you need some more content to watch, we just released episode 3 of Cryptid Conversations. You can catch that right here, and I will be back Monday for the next weekly update.